Justin Waters. I picked up the phone when I heard it buzz. This was a message from her husband, Tom, who has been out of town on business for the past few days. She unlocked her phone and read the message. "Business is finished here," the message read. "I'm on my way back now. Dinner reservation for 7 p.m. at Mario's restaurant. See you there. Happy anniversary." There were no endearments or heart emojis. This didn't really surprise her. For some reason, Tom hasn't been very social lately. "See you," Justine wrote back. "Happy anniversary. Love you." She sent a message and put her phone on the nightstand, hoping to see a response. At least something. Everything would be fine. But there was no answer. Justine looked at her watch and realized that she had just enough time to get herself in order before meeting her husband. She sighed, got out of bed, and headed to the bathroom to shower before meeting her husband. "Who was that?" asked Jake Carter, the man she had just spent a few hours with. "My husband," Justine said. "He said that he was returning. He's already made a reservation for us at Mario's for tonight. This is our 5th anniversary." "It's your 5th anniversary, right?" Jake asked. "I thought you said he went back east." "Yes, he was there," Justine said. "Apparently, he managed to finish everything early. I need to call my mom to see if she would mind looking after little Jacob for a little while longer." "Okay, then go back to bed," Jake said with a sly grin. "Maybe we can give Tom a small gift." Justine snorted at this. "I'd love to, Jake, but I really need to clean myself up a little, and I don't have much time," she said. "Luckily, I have clean clothes here that I can wear. You shouldn't meet your husband wearing the clothes I wore here. It is wrinkled and stained." "Do you think he knows about us?" Justine shook her head. "No, I do not think so. He's been very busy lately. This occupied almost all of his attention. He rarely talks to me and almost never does anything with the child. It's like he's in a completely different world." "How long are you going to lead him by the nose?" Jake asked. Justine shrugged. "Hard to say. He is a good provider. I know he would be a great father if he wanted to." "Do you think he knows that little Jacob is not his?" "If he knows, he doesn't say anything. I can't imagine he would let something like that happen without mentioning it to me." "Well, I'll be here if you need anything." Justine smiled at him. Justine went to the closet and took out a clean dress. She couldn't believe how much of her wardrobe was in this closet and not in the closet she shared with her husband. Justine looked at the dress she had chosen, trying to remember if Tom had seen it before. It was blue, fell about 3 inches above the knee, and revealed quite a bit of tempting cleavage. She was pretty sure Tom had seen it before. If not, she'll just tell him that she just bought it. After calling her mother, Justine went to the bathroom and took a nice hot shower. She promised herself when she began her romance with Jake 16 months ago that she would never disrespect her husband. After her shower, Justine combed her long dark hair until it was just right, got dressed, and put on her makeup. Satisfied that she looked and smelled good enough to pass Tom's test, she kissed Jake and bid him good night. "See you tomorrow at the office?" he asked, looking her up and down. "Of course, my love. But today I had a duty call." She took her purse and lacerally left the room. Volume Waters took a drag from his cigarette while sitting in his Escalade in the parking lot opposite Mario's. He had just received word from one of the private investigators working for him that Justine had left the luxury condominium owned by Jake Carter, her lover for almost a year and a half. He looked at the photo of her in a blue dress sent by the private detective. It was not the dress she wore to Carter's apartment, and of course Tom had never seen it before. He wasn't surprised. Justine was right about one thing. Tom was in the East, but returned a day early. He was told in no uncertain terms that he had a serious security breach that needed to be fixed, immediately. They told him that if he didn't deal with it, they would. They, of course, were a federal agency that the public was not even allowed to know existed. Tom remembered how nervous he felt sitting in the office of the one-eyed man he knew only as Alpha One. Only a handful of people were allowed to know this man's name. and Tom wasn't on the list. "You have a serious problem?" "Waters," the man said, moving his head in a way that reminded Tom of the actor who once played Moses. "And when you have a problem, we all have a problem. Solve this problem. Quiet, or I will do it." "Yes, sir," said Tom. He was smart enough to know that this was the only answer Alpha One would accept, and he also knew that Alpha One had no qualms about making people disappear. He had heard stories about how Alpha One once destroyed an entire beach estate along with everyone inside. Tom shuddered at the thought. Justine thought that Tom was just a famous traveling salesman who traveled around the country selling his wares to various companies looking to upgrade their security systems. But Tom was much more than that. Of course, he actually sold security equipment and oversaw installations. But he was more than just a traveling salesman. A lot more. The equipment he sold and installed was equipped with special circuitry that gave the Alpha One monitors insight into almost everything these companies did, who they accepted as clients, what they did with their profits, everything. And Tom knew that the problem Alpha was talking about was his wife of 5 years, Justine. Well, that is, 5 years until today. For about the last year and a half, she had been having a whirlwind affair with Jake Carter, one of the senior partners at the law firm where she worked as a paralegal. Tom didn't know all the details until recently, primarily because he spent a lot of time traveling for work. But he noticed that something wasn't right between them for a while. By the time he learned the details of this affair, Justine announced her pregnancy. The lawyer Tom spoke to told him that no judge in this state would even consider a divorce while Justine was pregnant. If the child turns out to be his, he will be on the hook for child support, regardless of the prenuptial agreement they both signed. Except he didn't have to worry about the house that already belonged to him before marriage. Tom gritted his teeth and remained silent throughout the pregnancy and almost lost his temper when she named the boy Jacob, after his sperm donor. Immediately after the boy was born, Tom took a DNA test. He was not surprised to learn that the boy was not his. Looking at his watch, Tom realized that Justin would arrive soon. He saw a man in a khaki jacket standing at the door of Mario's with a woman holding a briefcase and knew it was for him. He crossed the street and parked. Grabbing his ever-present briefcase, he headed towards the front door, nodding slightly to the two people at the door. Tom spoke quietly to the woman at the door and was soon sitting in a corner booth. A khaki-clad man and woman sat in another booth within earshot. Tom thanked the waitress for the water and began looking through the menu. He noticed Justine's presence at the table and put down the menu. He stood up as she slid into the booth across from him. "Good evening, Justin," he said in a neutral tone. "You look very good this evening." "Thank you, Tom," she said, smiling. "I don't remember seeing this dress before." "This is something new?" Yes, I just bought it." "Do you like it?" "Yes, it really sets off your eyes," he told her with a slight smile. After they finished their order, they heard music playing from another part of the establishment. Mario's was more than just a restaurant. There was also a dance floor and a cocktail bar. "It sounds like they're playing our song," Justine said. Tom knew it was her way of saying she wanted to dance. What the hell, he thought. This was their anniversary, even if it would be their last. "Don't you want to dance?" he asked, standing up. "I don't mind," Justine said, holding out her hand. Tom took her hand and led her to the dance floor. They danced in each other's arms, but Justine couldn't help but notice that Tom kept some distance between them, as if he could barely touch her. The song finally ended, and Tom walked her back to the booth. By that time, food was brought to them, and they began to eat. "Is something wrong, Tom?" asked Justine. "You seem so reserved. It's our anniversary." "Yes, that's true," said Tom. "The thing is, your dress smells like it's been hanging in Jake Carter's closet for quite some time, and no matter how hard you tried, you could not completely cleanse your body of his stench." "What?" Justine asked, offended that Tom was talking to her like that. "Jake Carter? Are you serious?" she asked, unsuccessfully trying to distract Tom. "Yes, you know Jake Carter, one of the senior partners of the law firm where you work, Tom said, matter-of-factly. Of course I know him, Justine said sarcastically. I certainly hope so, said Tom. After all, you've spent enough time in his bed, plus he's little Jacob's sperm donor. What are you saying? It's outrageous. I won't sit here and listen to you talk to me like that, she said indignantly. Actually, sit down, Tom said, opening his briefcase. You will sit and absorb whatever information I decide to give you, especially after what you've done for the last 16 months. What? I do not understand what you're saying. Of course, you understand. Let's start with this, he added, throwing a piece of paper in front of her. What is this? This is the result of your child's DNA test. According to this, Jacob is not my son. The next sheet is another DNA test that proves that the sperm donor is none other than your lover, Jake Carter, the person you named Jacob after. How could you get Jake's DNA? She asked in confusion. It was easy. You brought Take It home with you at least 3 evenings a week, but that is not all. He pulled out a thick folder and threw it on the table. What is this? A copy of every email, text message, and email between you and Jake for the last 16 months. I hate to break it to you, but in reality, there is no such thing as online privacy. Okay, I admit it, she said. Jake and I fooled around once, but that was all. And it was just sex. It didn't mean anything, absolutely. Yeah. Please turn to page 75 and look about halfway through the page until you find the passage I highlighted. Tell me what you see. She flipped through the pages until she got to the one Tom was referring to. Her face paled as she read her own words to Jake. I'm reading this, she said quietly. Out loud. I want to hear you say the words you wrote to him. She swallowed and looked back at the page. Please, she begged. Don't make me do this. Either you do it, or I will do it. And if I do this, I won't care who hears. With tears streaming down her face, Justin looked back down at the paper and began to read the words Tom had highlighted. I love what you do to me, Jakey. I have never felt so wonderfully fulfilled as I have over the past 16 months. I can't wait until we have another baby. I look forward to the next time you can fill me up, she read. In all the time we've been married, I don't remember you ever talking to me like that, Tom said. Is that all you have? She asked nervously. No, I have photos, audio, and video. Hours upon hours of video. You must really hate me, Justine said quietly. Yes, sure. She looked up, shocked by what he had just said. It felt like a slap in the face. There was a time when I would have taken a bullet for you. How long have you known? I had my suspicions even before you told me you were pregnant. I did some digging and got some evidence. Enough to satisfy the prenuptial agreement. However, by the time I spoke with the lawyer, you told me that you were pregnant. The lawyer told me in no uncertain terms that no judge would even consider a divorce until you gave birth. Child support and all that. But now that Jacob is born, I have more than enough evidence to get the job done. So, I filed for divorce on the grounds of adultery. Tom pointed to the 2 people at the next table who stood up and walked over to their table. This sweet man has something for you. Miss Justine Waters? Asked the man. Yes, Justine said quietly. The man placed a thick paper envelope in front of her. You've been served. Have you been served? Justine asked, tears rolling down her face. Yes, Tom said, holding out his pen to her. Divorce documents. Look at them. They are exactly as we agreed in the prenuptial agreement. Sign them now, and I'm ready to give you a cashier's check for $2,145.63, the exact amount you had when we got married. Don't ask for anything more. I already know about your secret little fund. You can keep it. All your things were delivered to your mother's house. Yes, she knows, and she's very disappointed in you. But she agreed to let you stay with her until you find somewhere to live. For the boy's sake, not for yours. But I don't want a divorce, Justine said. I love you. Please, Justin, don't insult my intelligence. Listen, He pulled out his phone and replayed her conversation with Jake from earlier that day. Her eyes widened when she heard her own voice coming from Tom's phone. "How did you get this?" she asked. "Fine. I would tell you, but then I would really have to shoot you on the spot. As much as I hate you right now, I really don't think it would be right to deprive little Jacob of his mother," Tom said with a smile that lacked warmth. "I was nothing more than a meal ticket and a guardian for you while your baby daddy got all the benefits. Just so you know, your ticket has been punched. No more free lunches for you, at least from me." "What about Jake?" she asked. "Oh, you're worried about Daddy, right? Luckily, we live in a state that allows alienation of affection lawsuits. He was served right away. This may or may not lead to something, but the main thing is the principle, right? In any case, his problems are just beginning. You see, today I spoke with Hamilton Parker, your managing partner. I showed him my evidence and expressed my displeasure, knowing that one of his senior partners was involved with a subordinate. In particular, a subordinate who is my wife, at least for now. Mr. Parker was quite upset, and more than a little concerned that Mr. Carter's antics might bring unwanted attention to his firm, not to mention a rather significant financial burden. He agreed that it would be best if Mr. Carter were no longer associated with the firm, and assured me that he would discuss this with his board of directors this evening. He also agreed that it would be wrong to punish you, especially since you are a mother with a newborn child. After all, Mr. Carter was your boss, so to speak, and he didn't want to expose the firm to a potential sexual harassment lawsuit. Given your history there, he agreed that it would be best to keep you on board, at least for a while. But I assure you, Mr. Carter's problems are just beginning, Tom said. How much do you know about your lover? I mean, do you really know? What are you talking about? Asked Justine. I'm talking about his clients, the people he does business with. That is, who he really represents and what he does when he's not spending time with you. What do you know about this? I don't know. He doesn't talk to me about anything like that. That's probably good. Let's just say that your Jake Carter has a very interesting clientele, one that attracts the attention of certain federal agencies, agencies that can make a person disappear without a trace. Do you understand what I am talking about? You're scaring me, Tom. And you should be afraid, he told her. Are you scared enough to stay away from Jake Carter? Because he's going down. And if you're anywhere near him when that happens, you'll go down too. Who are you, Tom? She asked. In fact, he smiled, nodding his head at the papers in front of her. Sign the papers, Justin, and stop this farce now. I've probably already told you too much. And by the way, your credit card has been canceled and your house key no longer works. I changed the locks today while you were with Jake. I also took care of the bank account, so you no longer have access to it. Considering that you're putting half of your earnings into your own secret account, this shouldn't be a problem for you anyway. You knew everything, didn't you? She asked. Tom shrugged. Defeated, Justine looked at the divorce papers and saw that they were exactly as Tom said. She signed the papers and returned the pen to Tom. He smiled, took a pen, and looked through the papers. The process server witnessed the signatures, and the woman accompanying him notarized the signed documents. Tom handed the papers back to the man. I'll make sure this gets to your lawyer, Mr. Waters, he said. Thank you, said Tom. After they left, Tom turned back to Justine. I think you should give up your rings, he told her. Should I do this? I love these rings, she exclaimed. Obviously not enough to stay away from Jake Carter's bed. Justine, with tears in her eyes, took off the rings and placed them on the table. He put them in his pocket before addressing her. I believe our business here is completed. Your conclusion? Is that all you can say? What else needs to be said? Asked Tom. Why? Why did you do this on our anniversary? She asked, tears streaming down her face. Do you know how humiliating this is for me? Do you know how humiliating it was for me to find out that you were fooling around with me all this time? And how humiliating was it to find out that Jacob was not my son? And how humiliating was it when I found out that you had sex with Carter on our anniversary? "Don't you dare reproach me," said Tom. "We're done. We're done. Goodbye, Justin. I never want to see your face again." With that, he returned to his food without looking at Justine, who was wiping her face. The waitress came over and asked if everything was okay. "Yes, the food is excellent, as always," Tom said casually. "I'll take care of the payment, and I believe the lady will take her food with her, please." Yes, sir," the waitress said as she left to get Justine's takeout box. She returned a few minutes later and placed Justine's leftover food in a styrofoam container. Tom drew her credit card and paid for the food while Justine packed her things. When the waitress finished, Justine looked at Tom. "And that's all?" "That's all," Tom said, waving his hand. She couldn't believe he had just brushed her off. "I'm sorry, Tom." He looked up from his food before speaking. "Well, we can both agree on that," he said. "Now have a nice day. Tell your mom I said hi. Oh, and happy anniversary," he added with a small smile. Justine, in disbelief at the calm manner in which her husband had basically just thrown her out like trash, ran from the table, sobbing. Tom smiled and went back to eating. He noticed that several visitors were looking at him with contempt, but he only smiled back, shrugging his shoulders. He may have been calm and collected on the outside, but on the inside he was an emotional wreck, 5 years down the drain. At least now the worst was over. Tom managed to get through the next few days without incident. That was not easy. He had really loved Justine once, and it hurt him that he had to treat her like that. But he decided it was better to do this than to attack her the way he wanted. Then the day came when he heard a knock on his front door. He was in his master bedroom upstairs and looked out the window to see Carter's sports car in the driveway. He had a hunch that something like this would happen, so he made some additions to his home security system at Alpha One's urging. He went downstairs and opened the door. Of course it was Jake Carter, and he was angry. Tom backed away as Carter pushed his way inside. "You son of a bitch! You cost me my job! And Justin doesn't even want to talk to me." "I'll kill you, you fucking piece of shit!" Jake screamed, blushing. He advanced on Tom until he saw 15 tiny red dots suddenly appear on his shirt. "Anxiety! Invasion!" An electronic voice shouted from the speakers built into the walls. "Do not move!" "What the hell is this?" shouted the uninvited guest. He raised his hands as if brushing off dots. Suddenly there was a sharp sound of a shot, like a shot from an air rifle. When Jake looked down, he saw 15 darts protruding from his body. He reached up but never did. His eyes rolled back and his body collapsed to the floor. "I don't think you'll be able to kill anyone today, Carter," Tom said calmly, grabbing his phone. He clicked on the icon on his phone and heard a man's voice. "Operator 715463. Clean up aisle 15, Tom said. "Clean up aisle 15. "Accepted," said the man. Tom pressed another icon, and the systems that had just fired a burst of tranquilizer darts at Jake turned and retracted back into the ceiling. When the system doors closed, no one could tell that there was anything there. Tom smiled, pleased that the new security system worked as advertised. A few minutes later, an unmarked white van pulled into the driveway. Several men in Tyvek suits entered the house and dragged out Jake's limp body. One of them grabbed Jake's keys and got into the sports car. A couple of minutes later, the van and Jake's sports car were gone. Tom closed the door and went about his business. A few days later, after Tom bought a caramel mocha from a local coffee shop, he was stopped on the street by a large man in a dark suit and sunglasses. "Alpha One wants to talk to you, Mr. Waters," the man growled. "Now." "Okay," said Tom, a little discouraged by the man's behavior. He followed the man to a long black limo parked on the side of the street and got in after the man opened the back door. "Waters, I'm glad to see you're free," Alpha One said after the door closed. Yes, sir, I have a lot to do," said Tom. Alpha One smiled and placed a friendly hand on Tom's shoulder. "Please, Tom, When we are together, you can call me Regis, said the one-eyed man. I wanted to give you the latest news about Mr. Carter. He sings like a canary. Thank you, Regis. So he says everything that needs to be said? Tom asked. Oh yes, he does it right off the bat, Regis said. But now he literally sings like a canary. It seems the combination of those tranquilizer darts in the new security system and the serum we used to extract the information we needed turned his brain to applesauce. Right now he is swinging on a swing in a metal cage and chirping like a bird. Oh, said Tom. Regis pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket and handed it to Tom. We got him to settle with you out of court before he became too incompetent to sign his name, Regis said. He was so grateful to be alive that he agreed to much more than you wanted. Well, that's good to hear, Tom said. By the way, I want you to know that I'm really impressed with your new system, Regis said. Now that we got what we needed from Carter, I'm glad you didn't use the 50 caliber chain guns I suggested. Me too, said Tom. I recently cleaned my carpet. Regis chuckled at this. Have you heard anything about Justine? Tom asked. Yes, she's back to work, although Mr. Parker keeps her on a very short leash. Have you ever mentioned to her who you actually work for? Regis asked. No, Regis. I never did that, said Tom. Regis nodded his head. He already knew this from his monitoring devices, but he wanted to hear it from Tom in person. Okay, said Regis. Okay, when your divorce is final, I would like you to come to headquarters. I'd like to introduce you to your new partner. To a partner? Tom asked. I've never needed a partner before. Well, there's a first time for everything, isn't it, Tom? Yes, sir. I suppose so, said Tom. Okay, said Regis. Then I look forward to meeting you. Me too, Regis, said Tom. The door opened, signaling the end of the meeting. Tom stepped out of the limousine and watched as a large man squeezed into the driver's seat. As the long car pulled into the traffic, Tom wondered what Regis had in store for him. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.